Good afternoon, and thank you for attending the ARC Central Chesapeake Region Self-Directed Services webinar series. We're going to give people just a minute to arrive over the next minute or so. Okay, so we'll get started. Just wanted to note before we begin that this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be posting it to our website for those who are unable to make it today. I'm Peter Cook. I'm the Director of Stakeholder Relations at the ARC Self-Directed Services. I'm here with our Chief Program Officer, Matt Morgan, and Tara Cromwell, our Financial Reporting Specialist. And today we'll be reviewing the Participant Dashboard section of FMS Engine. So the dashboard is a resource for participants to view their up-to-date budget information, spending reports, the status of the timesheets that you block approved, in addition to some other details. And we're going to walk through that module by module today. Just wanted to note that the dashboard is accessible to the participant right now. It's not something that employees would access, just the participant. CCSs currently have access, and support broker access with the approval of the participant is in the works for early next year. So stay tuned for more communication about that. Before I start walking through the dashboard, I did just want to note that if we could save our questions for the end of the webinar, we're going to have a Q&A after we've walked through. And if you have a specific question about the numbers that you see on your participant dashboard, that we would recommend placing a ticket for financial reporting if it's about the budget numbers, or FMSE help ticket if it's about the timesheet section. I also just wanted to note that the information that you're going to see in the dashboard during this demo today it's all faked information. It's just a test account in our staging environment. So if you see some names, those are all just made up or public figures. So to start, the dashboard is accessed the same way that a participant accesses the EVI portal. Once you've logged into FMSE using the standard link, which can be found on our website or in welcome email, you'll land on this welcome page, which includes a link to the EVI portal. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. And then a link to the participant dashboard, which is where you can access your spending in real time. So you click the PD there. It's going to take you to an authentication required screen in which you just click sign in with FMS users. And you will land on the main dashboard tab of the dashboard. So the dashboard tab is kind of the overview of all these other tabs that we see up at the top here. It includes sort of a snapshot of the budget information, the timesheets, so on. If you want to review older timesheets and a few years from now, older budgets, you would actually want to click on the tab above rather than reviewing it through the dashboard here. But this is a quick place to check the budget information or the most recent timesheets. So you see the name of the participant on the left side here. Corey Kispert is our test fake participant. You see the participant's internal number. You'll see the enrollment that they're in. If a support broker is connected, which we won't see that yet on your particular dashboards, then you would see the name of the support broker. You'll see a list of your current and older employees. You click all employees, and then the most recent budgets, timesheets, and other information below, including spending reports. So that's the dashboard tab here that has sort of an overview of the more detailed tabs. The next tab that we're going to look at is the budget tab here, which I'm sure everyone is interested in hearing about. So what you can see here on the budgets tab is your most up-to-date budget information. It includes the budget line items for a budget in addition to the total of the budget. And it shows the start and end time of your current budget, as well as your older budget. So when you're using the budgets tab, you're not going to see individual expenses. You're going to see more of an overview of your overall expenditures and the usage for each budget line item. So you'll see the start date and end date for each line item, which is going to reflect the budget and the plan itself. You'll see the total amount that is in each line item, the usage, and then the balance after the usage. One important thing to note about the amount is that will reflect budget modifications and revisions. So if you've done a budget mod, that will reflect in about a business day or so being entered into FMSZ by our financial reporting team in that total amount for the budget line item. Likewise, the usage should reflect pretty much in real time. And then the balance will also track along with that. So this upcoming month, January, is when we're going to have all of our accounts payable information totally up to date in FMSZ, and you can be turning to this particular tab in addition to the spending report tab that we will be looking at next as the most up-to-date information when it comes to your budget. Currently, per the how to review your budget sheet that we have on the forms and resources page of the website, we mentioned that the in-tax statement, this is the financial statement that is emailed out to the participant and any approved members of their team, including the CCS, in the middle of each month, needs to be used to review expenditures, and you would compare that against the amount here in the budget tab of the participant dashboard. We are expecting to stop sending the monthly statement for January. That will be the last time we send it out, after which the information in the participant dashboard will be totally up to date in terms of expenditures. One other thing to note about the budgets tab is that if your budget has gone into auto extend because you're still waiting for the new plan to be approved, that will appear as its own separate budget in the budget section here. So I just wanted to note that for people who may see a budget that says auto extended. And once your new plan and budget are approved, the auto extended budget will remain there afterward as well. So I'm going to skip ahead on the tabs here because we're on the subject of budgets and financial statements here. The report tab here includes a spending report that a user can download. The ARC's plan is to generate these on behalf of the participant every 2 weeks, as opposed to there being a monthly statement. These will now track along with each biweekly pay period so that you can see more up-to-date information that will factor in the wages from each biweekly pay period as opposed to only getting that once a month. So this should help people and participants track their spending more easily. This spending report, I'm going to show you an example here, will also include itemized individual expenses, which you may see is not appearing on the monthly in-tax statement anymore. So this is another way that a participant is going to be able to keep track of their expenses more efficiently as we move forward with this system. So if we look at the participant budget statement here, you can see there's an individual budget line item that shows the total amount as well as the total usage. And then you can actually see some examples of individual expenses. For instance, this is a fake employee, and these are the wages that they logged for a pay period. You see that usage against the current balance. You can also see some very granular, small examples of some mileage expenses appearing on the statement. And then at the bottom of the spending report, you can see the total usage and the remaining balance. Please note, this is a test example. These figures are not, exact. These were just added in. So you may see like the usage doesn't quite match the individual expenses here. On your individual report, those expenses will all track and they'll make sense. So in the middle, at the beginning of each pay period, or after each pay period is over rather, participants can go to the reports page here and you will see that a new spending report will appear, and you just click download here and it downloads the spending report. That will be every 2 weeks now, rather than us sending it out only on a monthly basis. If right now you notice that the in-tax statement does not match the information that you see either on the spending report or in the budgets tab, that would likely be related to some retro payments or some flats not yet being applied to FMSD. The same could be for some more recent invoices. Again, we are planning to have all the information updated by mid-January so that participants can refer to the budgets tab and the reports tab for up-to-date expenditures, in addition to the budget amounts that are currently up to date in real time. So that's pretty much it for the budgets and the spending report sections. Another useful feature of the participant dashboard is the timesheets tab. So the timesheets tab will show you any timesheets that have been approval locked by both the participant and the employee. So if you have not approval locked a shift in the EVI portal, you will not see that shift in the timesheets tab of the participant dashboard. If a shift is approval locked, that batch will port over to the timesheet section of the dashboard once the pay period is over, and you will see the status of a batch of shifts. So for these test examples here, you can see the start time and the end time of a shift, in addition to the service code for the shift, as well as the rate that the shift was processed at and the number of hours that the shift lasted. One thing we would want to note here is that not all shifts that are approval locked are processed. So if you see 0 under processed hours, it means that a shift has not yet been processed. But I do want to note that just because a shift says that it has not been processed doesn't mean that that won't happen. The information will appear in the participant dashboard about 24 to 48 hours after the pay period ends. So you'll see those shifts before they have been processed by our payroll department. So if the pay period ends and you approve all your shifts on the Monday that they need to be approved by, it's very likely that you will see those batches of shifts that were approval locked appearing on the dashboard as not processed, on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It could even be the following week. They may still not be processed, but that does not necessarily mean that the employee is not going to get paid. As long as the shifts do not overlap and there's sufficient funding in the budget, there's no reason that shifts wouldn't be processed. But you should see them showing up as processed, a day or two before the pay date. For older shifts that are entered retroactively and then approval locked, they will appear chronologically in the timesheet section, and they'll display just like the newer, pay period shifts. It's just that they will appear within approximately 24 to 48 hours of the shift just being approval locked in real time, whereas the most current pay period, the full batch appears in the dashboard after the pay period is over. So if you approval locked a shift from the current pay period and it's not yet finished, that shift is not yet going to appear in the timesheet section of the participant dashboard. That will not happen until the pay period is over. Again, if you have a specific question about what you're seeing in the timesheet section of the participant dashboard, please place a ticket for FMSE help, and a representative can provide clarification. Moving on to the enrollments tab here, there's not much information on it. It's just if a participant is enrolled, you'll see their enrollment start date, and then if it's an older enrollment, potentially the end date. We have an invoices tab in the dashboard. This feature is not currently being used, but it will be launched at some point in the new year. This would just be an itemized listing of invoices that have been processed. Invoices are going to appear on the spending report section, so you can see the invoices on the spending report now. And then, of course, you can review invoices that have been processed, and as well as the status of pending invoices in bill.com as well, if you're a vendor. We will be notifying participants when the invoices option is available. I'm going to skip the lump payment section because we don't utilize that feature. So if you see that, it's just going to appear blank because there's no information that will be appearing there. On the support broker tab, you will see the support broker if you have given permission for them to be linked to the system and have read-only access to the dashboard. That feature has not yet been utilized. We will be following up in the new year with more information about how participants can request access for their support broker to have read-only access to the participant dashboard. And then on the employees tab here, a participant can just view a list of their current and past employees, just includes their name, their current status, start date, and if they were terminated, the end date, in addition to the email that is associated with their own FMSE account. So just to recap, in case anybody was late here, the dashboard tab of the participant dashboard includes sort of an overview of all of the rest of the tabs. For older information, you're going to want to go to each individual tab to view it, because the timesheet information only goes back, a few pay periods, as we can see here. The budget tab includes the general spending, the total amount and the balance for budget lines in your budget. The spending reports under the reports tab, which again, we will be generating twice a month in accordance with payroll period, will show actual itemized expenses and actual timesheet wages being applied to the budget in addition to the total usage. The timesheets tab of the dashboard shows any timesheets that have been approval locked, which means that both the participant and the employee have approved the shift. And it will also show the status of each individual shift and whether or not it was processed and what rate it was processed at for participants who are interested in seeing what rate is being processed for a particular employee's service code. The enrollments tab shows the participants' enrollments. The invoices tab is not yet in use, but it will show invoice information. The support broker tab will show a support broker if the participant has elected to allow the support broker to have read-only access to the system. And the employees tab shows a list of active and former employees that have been in the FMS engine system for a participant. Again, if you have a specific question about the information that you see on your dashboard, whether it's expenditures that you see, budget information, information about timesheets, please place a Zendesk customer service ticket for the appropriate department. And that will be the quickest way to get a response for something that's more specific to your budget. I also wanted to remind participants that they can always check the tools and technology page of our website for a couple of additional resources on the participant dashboard, including the manual. Again, that's under the tools and technology section of the ARC's self-directed services website. And that's pretty much it. So the next portion of the webinar is just Q&A. So hopefully we answered most questions in advance. But if anyone does have a question, Matt Morgan will be reading that out loud. And depending on what the subject is, either Tierra, Cromwell, our financial reporting specialist, or I can provide an answer.
All right. So I'm just going to go in order here. The budgets in the portal are not in real time. When will they start to be updated in real time? I believe if you're referring to the expenditures, they are updated as payroll is processed or as invoices are added. There is somewhat of a delay in invoices, meaning they might be paid a week or two before they get added in.
But but generally the information, once it's in the EBI portal side, if the information, if payroll has been processed, the invoice has been processed, or if the modification, for example, has been processed, that should port over to the participant dashboard within, a business day.
All right. Budget data is not lining up correctly. The spending report doesn't have all of the categories listed, such as mileage, and the FMS monthly statement doesn't follow. They're asking for a comprehensive review, and how do they get a detailed budget statement that shows everything, essentially. My understanding, though, is that, every budget line should appear in the participant dashboard, correct, Peter?
That's correct, yes. If the budget line gets entered into FMSE, which is what our financial reporting team does once a revised or a new budget has been approved, that budget line should reflect in the participant dashboard as well. So again, I think that sounds like it might be a good time for a ticket to be placed for that issue for financial reporting, so that we can ensure that we have the correct information in FMSE.
There's some questions about support broker access, which you mentioned we were going to be rolling out in the new year. So I don't know if we have a time frame yet for that, but I think it would be early January.
Correct. Yeah, we will be reaching out with some communications to participants about the next steps for that initiative in mid-January, early January.
Right. Someone asked what date the budget is updated each month, but as we covered, it's updated for the most part in real time, particularly for payroll activity.
Yeah, and the spending reports, if that's what they're referring to, would be after a pay period has been processed, so that the most recent shifts get included on the spending report.
But just to be clear, they can be seen in timesheets anyway, too, right?
Oh, yes, in the timesheet section, they would appear, sooner.
The spending report is essentially a summary report as a PDF of what is also available in budgets and timesheets tab, correct?
Correct, except it also includes individual expenses as well. So in addition to the overall usage, you can actually see, the shift from a pay period. You can actually see individual invoices appearing.
Is there a way to see a column which shows a percentage usage for each category?
Not on the budget tab. There's an overall percentage usage on the spending report, but I don't think there is one for a particular budget line.
All right. Someone asked who on our team or who can our team contact at the ARC to set up a meeting to conduct a line-by-line detail review of the full budget?
In that case, I would recommend placing a ticket for financial reporting in Zendesk.
I would also add that if you've already I would recommend that people review it themselves, and if they have specific concerns, send them through with the tickets so that the team can address those or look into them prior to meeting, just to make sure that they have everything. Otherwise, they'll just be sort of jotting down notes. And it makes more sense to have a productive meeting where they can get some background information first. Someone asked, can you please clarify what you meant about overlapping shifts not being processed? I thought there was an allowance for 7 minutes. Yeah, there's still a 7-minute allowance for overlaps, but I think Peter was referring to periods of time that are more significant than that.
Yeah, that's correct. I apologize. I should have made sure to mention that there is 7-minute overlap allowed.
When I pull up the dashboard, it takes a long time for it to appear like it's overloaded with data. I think that just is, sometimes the processing times take longer than others. It might also depend on what other activity is happening in the system, but we work with our vendor to make sure they add appropriate resources if they see the system getting taxed.
Yeah. Honestly, my tip there would be the first thing to do would be to try to just reset the tab, just refresh the browser. If that doesn't work, I would recommend placing a ticket for FMSE help, and we can look into that.
Someone asked, when are families notified they are near a negative balance? Well, so one thing to note is that you actually can't go into a negative balance technically in the system, but we would be sending out emails when people get close to that line. And then our team reaches out to people to complete budget modifications when specific budget lines have been exhausted or used up. Someone asked, how will a participant give permission to the support broker to get to the dashboard? Peter, you want to go to?
Sure. Yeah, we'll be sending out a form. And again, this is optional. Participants don't have to give permission if they choose not to, but the form should be going out probably by mid-January. So once you've elected to give that support broker access, we would get them set up within a week or two.
Great. Will FMS statements still be sent out to participants now that they have full access to the portal?
I believe that we're sending out one more statement in January, and then after that, we're going to strictly be using the spending report tab of the dashboard to sort of function as the same thing. The spending report in the dashboard actually will show more because it'll have actual expenditure items, specific invoices, specific pay periods, reflecting against the usage rather than just the total expenses for a budget line.
Someone who joined late was asking why there's no invoices in the invoice section. I think you explained that those come through in a different area, and that's not what that tab is meant for. Is that accurate?
I think we are working on having the invoice tab populate with invoices that have been processed. It just hasn't, sounds like that happens yet. And again, you could refer to the spending report to see the individual invoices.
Right. So they still appear in the spending report, even though they're not in that tab.
Correct.
Someone said, what training is given to families on how to use the portal to track their spending? Good news, we're in the middle of it.
Yeah, and again, if you have more questions, you can place a Zendesk ticket for FMSE help if it's about the usability of the dashboard itself or about using the dashboard. And if it's a more budget related question, I would recommend placing a financial reporting ticket.
Someone said my monthly budget sheet shows categories that are not on the participant dashboard. For example, vendor services for community development services, I assume. So the monthly budget sheet is, I guess that's the report that's sent, shows different categories than the participant dashboard. I would again place a ticket if you feel like there's a discrepancy there that needs to be addressed. It's possible a budget mod got processed in one place and not another. The participant dashboard should align with the budget sheet that was submitted with the PCP. Someone asked which tab will display whether or not the budget is over or under. You would need to track, you know, you would need to sort of develop your own, metric, I guess, in terms of figuring out where you should be in a given time, depending on when you're looking at the budget and where you think you should be at that time.
Correct. But if you click on the budgets tab here, all of the budgets that have been entered into FMSE will appear here with each line item. And that will show the total amount, the total usage, and the balance. So that's one way that you can track your budget.
Someone asked for hours on timesheets that have not been processed for payment, what is the timeline to process them? The timeline to process them for the current payroll cycle just depended. It normally takes about a week, I think.
Yeah.
But if they're older hours, then there's a potential issue with the budget, and you could put in a ticket with that. If the budget line has been exhausted, there might be timesheets that are being held and that aren't showing up on the budget because money needs to be essentially done using the budget mod process. Money needs to be moved into the line if the line has been used entirely. Sorry, there's a lot of questions that seem to be repeats. Someone asked how long it takes for vendor payments to show up. I think it normally takes about 2 weeks. Depending, normally they're entered weekly, the week after they're paid, but it might take as long as 2 weeks. If you have a very specific question, do a ticket for that. There's some people that have pretty specific questions about their situation, and it's best for someone to just be able to look into that directly. Someone said an employee is unable to input time as their app does not list any service codes. That wouldn't be related to this, but that would be if they've been issued clearance. I guess the first step would be whether or not they've been issued clearance as an employee, and then if the service codes haven't been entered, whether they were assigned to those service codes or maybe need codes added with an employee change form. But you could put in a ticket for that as well.
Yeah, in that case, I would recommend placing an FMSE help ticket.
Someone asked the differences between the spending report, participant budget statement, general ledger, and the monthly statement, if any. They should closely align. If you see a discrepancy, then reach out to us.
Correct, but the budget tab is going to show just the budget lines and their usage. The spending report is going to show, a more detailed breakdown of what those expenditures were. But they should align in terms of usage, though.
If there's inaccurate information in the dashboard and a ticket submitted, what's the turnaround time for the issue to be resolved? That just depends on, some tickets only take even as little as a few hours to resolve, and they can take longer if there's a more complicated issue, particularly if it's a systems issue, although we pretty rarely encounter those. So we should be at least responding to the ticket within a day and letting you know we're looking into it further. So it just depends on the type of issue, though, if it needs to be elevated.
Correct. If a shift or a timesheet gets approval locked and there's an error on it or it was done by mistake, you would want to place a payroll corrected timesheet ticket for that. And then you would actually see, like, if they end up voiding a shift that was accidental, you would still see that appearing on the timesheet section of the dashboard. It would just show as void, though.
People asked someone asked if there's a specific spot where you can tell exactly when a budget mod was processed. That information is not available in the participant dashboard. So you should see that when it gets processed, you should see that the numbers match what was sent. But there's not a way to tell when that was done in the dashboard.
I'm sorry. An email should also be sent out once the modification or revision has been processed with the process documents attached.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Good.
So once that's been updated in FMSE by financial reporting, on the back end, it should only take, approximately a business day for that information to reflect accurately on the dashboard as well.
Someone asks if spending is itemized, why is there a lump sum tab at all? I think it's just different. It just gives people options, different ways of looking at it.
Yeah, the lump.
Also, it's also just for note, this is a product that's used in different states as well. So there's some features that, that are sort of just in there that might make sense for the way self-direction works in other states or the way other people have asked to look at it. And so that's why there's sort of different ways of looking at it or different views.
Yeah, in the ARC's case, we don't utilize that tab at this time.
Someone asked if participants still need to send the ARC a letter requesting support broker read-only access. No, an email will go out with instructions on how to request support broker access in a couple weeks. Someone asked about overlaps with day-to-day managers and personal support staff. There's certain overlaps that are allowed based on program rules. So if there's for instance, day-to-day administration overlap with personal supports, that should be getting ignored during payroll processing. Someone said it's difficult to do a budget model without updated budget information. We're hoping to do one, but we're waiting for the up-to-date information on the dashboard. The dashboard is as up to date for the most part for most people as it can be. So if you need to do a budget mod, I would suggest doing that if you feel like if there's a budget line that's running out particularly. But I would reach out if you feel like there's a certain class of expenditures or something that hasn't been reported that you feel it should be. Just do a ticket for that. These are a lot of repeat questions. Someone asked if a vendor payment request is the same as an invoice. Yeah, a vendor payment request is what it would be attached to an invoice for payment. You could also, if the correct information necessary for processing was on the invoice per DDA's memo, the invoice will be processed as long as everything is on there, such as participant signature and stuff like that, and the correct service names and everything. And someone said that they are not showing up in their dashboard. Again, if it's been 2 weeks and you're not seeing something that was paid show up, then please put in a ticket for that.
And again, for budget related stuff like that, you would want to do a financial reporting ticket.
Someone asked why the monthly report on the 15th has a limited number of items and the budget statement shows all of them. I think that's just a difference in it doesn't come out of the same system. So there might be a slight discrepancy with all the budget lines that are entered in FMSE and the budget, the 15th of the month report, the one that gets sent, they have not been getting updated. That system has not been updated with budget mods. So they are slowly going out of date. The most recent, the most up-to-date budget lines that we have should be what you see in the participant dashboard.
Also, if there hasn't been an expense posted to that specific budget line item, then it won't show up on the statement. And then it also should have a zero usage amount on the dashboard.
Uh, How long does it take to move money in the system when a new budget is approved and submitted? I think new budgets are updated weekly. Is that correct here? Like newly approved BCPs? Okay, yeah. So it might take a couple days. I mean, we get we don't we get either the CCS or team can notify us that a budget's been approved, or we get weekly report from DDA notifying us what has been approved in that week. So then it, take a couple days after that to get it entered in there. Someone asked if mileage can be submitted late as long as it's within the budget. I mean, invoices can be submitted. I mean, the mileage would count as that, but if it will be processed if there is money in the budget for it. As long, and then that's assuming there's no cutoff or so, some other reason it's cut off or something like that.
And assuming that we have, insurance information and driver's license info.
Right, we'd need everything that was in place at that time to process. Someone asked about hard copy of timesheets submitted. I'm not sure what they're asking, but if they're asking about timesheets, old timesheets, those are all stored, but they're not attached to these. We don't attach the paper timesheet PDFs to these transactions, and you should have them. We have them stored somewhere, but they're not. It's not something we make available through this system, or even can make available through the system. Um, I don't see anything. It's not a repeat or very specific. Someone asked if there's a way to submit a budget model without a CCS. I believe a participant can send that directly. I could be wrong about that.
I think it does have to come
From a
from a
CCS.
CCS. Yeah.
Yeah, so if we don't have any more brand new questions, Matt, or on topic questions, I can wrap up if you want.
Sorry, one more question I want to address, because it's not related to the participant dashboard, but is there a way that personal sports overnight support can be separate from personal supports? It's causing numerous problems having both lumped together. You can do it either way. Let me just say though that we actually see the opposite, which is having them not lumped together causes problems because staff don't clock in correctly. The overnight staff aren't sticking to a specific schedule and are using regular personal supports. The regular standard personal supports budget line runs out, but there's plenty of money left over in the overnight support line, and it causes problems. So you can either have a separate line for overnight support. Typically that happens if you want to have a different pay rate for that, but you're welcome to have it regardless of whether you want a different pay rate. But I think we've been recommending people lump them together just because it causes problems having two different budget lines to manage, because staff have to strictly adhere to that schedule. So if a staff's working 12 hours, that's fine, but they need to only clock in for the number of hours that are considered overnight, and then clock out and clock back in under the regular support line, which just can cause problems for people. So you can do it either way that you want, though.
Great. So we wanted to thank everyone for attending. As a reminder, we will post a video version of this on the forms and resources page of our website. And as another reminder, this is part of an ongoing monthly series of webinars now, in which we go over topics that will help participants self-direct. So you should expect communication soon in the next newsletter about next month's webinar and the topic. So we'll see everybody then. Thanks so much.